of the old equipment.
There you go.
I think we are ready.
Ready?
Firing on.
Ready? All right. Just as we get started, I'm here today with Mr. Ray Edmonds.
I could give you the whole name, but would it be confusing to you?
Give us the whole name.
The whole name is Campbell Ray Edmonds.
Campbell Ray Edmonds.
Mm-hmm.
And just for posterity, whoever's watching, it's November the 7th, 2021. We're here in his home on Winston Churchill Drive. For those who aren't aware, Mr. Edmonds is a lifelong resident, I believe, of the city of Hopewell.
Born in this house.
Born in this house, even more of a reason to get his perspective on the history of the city and what he's seen. And I think you are how old?
91.
91, born in
June the 9th, 1930.
1930, here in this house.
In this house.
Maybe we start at the beginning, and I'll just ask you, what are your earliest recollections?
Of Hopewell?
Could be of your family, of Hopewell, of this house.
I have fond memories. I was born in this house, and my mother and them lived, after I was born a year later, they moved next door. But when I became of age in 18, I bought the house back. And then when I got married in 1954, I remodeled and moved in it and been here all my life since then.
So you bought this house when you were 18 years old.
18 years old. I was, a matter of fact, I was in business at 18 years old.
And we'll get to the business in a little bit, but what kind of business were you in?
I was a plastering contractor. W.H. Mason put me in business.
Okay. And where was W.H. Mason located?
In Hopewell, over top of Broader's hardware store. That was his office.
Okay.
W.H. Mason.
Now, when I look out the door here today, I see a different perspective than what you saw when you were a young man or a boy. There's Cavalier Square right behind us. There's what I'm going to call Langston Park right across the street, and there's Carter Woodson a block down. When you looked out this door as a young boy, what did you see?
When behind it, where Cavalier Square, now a black man named John Spencer owned it. We used it as a playground. We played ball back then. That was our playground.
Was it a farm or just?
It was a farm. Well, years ago it was a farm, and then it grew up into trees. And the only thing was back there when I come along as a kid was a cemetery and a ball field.
Cemetery.
Cemetery.
Cemetery still there or no?
They said they removed the body. The cemetery is right along there when you go up to Cavalier Square, right, went up from Palm Street, from Winston Churchill Drive, and right there where you get ready to go to the arch, right to your left with the cemetery.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Now, how about
on the front side, where you talking about on Winston Churchill Drive, this house, I went away and did a job in Florida in 1961. When I left here, this house was sitting on a huge street.
okay?
Huge street. The house was, down below the house was a streetcar track. The streetcar track ran from Petersburg to Hopewell. But when I came back, they had cut the complete street out. Hughes Street was gone, the streetcar track was gone, and the lane was made at that time. It was no longer Hughes Street, they named it Winston Churchill Drive. The main driveway that you see behind my house was Palm Street. That street was on its right away from here to Petersburg. When you left Hopewell, when you left from downtown Hopewell, right there where the car shed, we call it the car shed, that was the main street. Palm Street came all the way down from there where Marvin Neal Bridge at it, came around by there and came on down by the Armour and turned right there where Twin River apartment at. That used to be a streetcar stop that was called 54 Stop. And they made a right turn there. When the streetcar came from Petersburg, and that's what they exchanged, that the streetcar come from Petersburg would go straight that way and go around by 2Bs. And the one that coming from Petersburg would come back by Palm Street go back. That was, they didn't have nowhere for them to divide them, so that was divided today.
So is Winston Churchill, was it a new street?
New street, brand new name.
All right, so it was Winston, that was one of the questions I had, was it was Winston Churchill from the beginning?
No, it wasn't Western Churchill. There was
Okay.
nothing but a streetcar track
Okay,
and Hughes Street.
okay,
Hughes Street stopped at the railroad track because when you got to the railroad track, you was after you passed the railroad track, it was a creek there. They called it was swallowed, and that was Prince George at that point.
all right. So if I was gonna leave your house and go to Arlington Road, how would I get there
Go
from
up,
here?
go back to, you had to go to Palm Street.
Okay,
Go to Palm Street and then you turn and go back on Arlington Road. Turn left, go across the railroad track, turn left. Turn left, it was Bordeaux Landing then. It wasn't, everybody that lived there called it Bordeaux Landing.
right. And who, I've heard of Bodo's Landing, but
How it happened?
Bo-
Dr.
Bodo,
Bodo,
yeah.
Dr. Bodo turned his car over there and wrecked it there. He was a doctor in Hopewell.
did he own it or did he just,
He didn't know what it
He didn't own it. Okay.
He was half high and come back and turned his wreck right there. They went to make the curve and turned his car over.
and where exactly was the wreck?
Right there at the bottom where the bridge is.
Okay. Did he live? I guess he lived.
He lived after that.
yeah. Okay.
Called it Bodo Landing, Dr. Bodo.
All right. So going back to looking out, going the other way towards Langston Park, what was there before Langston
That
Park?
used to be owned by a gentleman, Dr. Robin. Matter of fact, was one house right there on the corner. Mr. Saunders and his wife lived there. But nothing else was there. And on the next, it was a street down there from there called Franklin Street. And on that street was about 5 or 6 houses.
Okay. And then moving further down, Carter Woodson,
Carter Woodson was nothing but a field.
a field.
Up the field. And Mr. Baker, it was a right where Carter Woodson at now. It used to be a streetcar stop there. And the streetcar ran through a little station there. Mr. Baker, a white man, owned that stop.
Okay.
Right there, it was a streetcar stop.
All right. And the modern Carter Woodson is built in when does Carter Woodson get built?
Carter Woodson was built, I think, was 1954, 55.
Okay. All right.
The old Carter Woodson.
The old
Ask him about the old.
Yeah.
Carter Woodson. So
See, Carter Woodson was built, that's the third Carter Woodson.
okay.
That's not the original.
So prior to that, why don't you go ahead and share some about the original or the prior locations?
The original one was down by fire station up behind fire station number 1, down in Georgia Hill.
There's a marker there today, I think, somewhere that's
It's a marker there right on the corner right there by the fire station by the railroad track.
Okay.
You ever seen a picture of it?
I've seen a picture of it, yes, and I've seen the marker. So is that where you attended?
I used to walk from here. It was a white school in Holly and Pollard,
Right?
right where Onsa Hyde have his business. It was a white school. We used to walk past that school and go down Palm Street, which went all the way down by the streetcar track, follow the streetcar track, and go all the way down to Georgia Hill and cross the railroad track and go to school. When I was 6 years old, I had to walk from my house down there, me and my sister,
Mm-hmm.
and walk back every day.
That was grades. Started at grade what and went to?
Started grade 1 and went to grade 11.
All right.
We only went to 11 grades.
And is that the only school? Or
No, that's
yeah.
not the only one. I did in 1940, I think about 41 or 42. They condemned it and moved over to Daisylville, where Butterworth has, where your uncle had the manufacturing.
Right at the Custom Comfort. So that's Carter Woodson location number 2.
Number 2,
Number 2.
that's where I graduated from.
Okay. And that's serving. How large were the classes? How many kids?
It was one with 11 rooms in it still.
Okay.
We didn't have a gymnasium or nothing at that time. When I graduated, it was pitiful.
Yeah.
And not being racist or anything, but we had to have the school didn't have a gymnasium, didn't have nothing. We had our class night was done in the church. We had our little, they call it the senior party and all, was done at the housing authority building over there. Then our graduation was done in Friendship Baptist Church. That's where we had our graduation in.
Mm-hmm.
One with 13 members of my class.
And when you say the housing authority building, is that the building in Davisville?
in Daisville.
In Davisville, it's still there today.
Still there today.
Yeah.
That's where we had our class night at.
You're, as a young boy, kids in the neighborhood, where would you go to play, hang out, parks?
Well, neighborhood watch, they have it now. Matter of fact, I was on committee to create a neighborhood watch. Neighborhood watch was nothing new to me. My mother lived next door. If I did something, if I came through Daisville, if I came that way, I had to come through Daisville and Southview to get home in Holiday Park. 2 days' time, my mother would know what I'd done. Somebody in the neighborhood would tell my mother in 2 days' time that I threw a rock at somebody or hit somebody or walked with a girl or somebody.
Right.
So neighborhood watch was not new to my mother.
Yeah.
Neighborhood watch started back there with my mother in 1939,
Yeah.
40.
So if you're going to play,
If I went to play,
if you're going to play pickup baseball or basketball or
we didn't have that.
no, nowhere. Okay. Earliest recollections of where that would have been.
The closest place when they finally did, they put a, we had a recreation park. They put we had we played baseball. They had 2Bs had a park. 2Bs was not Firestone or Celanese, it was called 2Bs.
Yeah.
2Bs was a silk manufacturing company. That was right there, right now where the ethanol plant is.
Right.
They had a field. Then you had another baseball field between, you know where Airline has that building on 6th Street?
Yeah.
And then you had right next to it, you had another, what's your name? It was a baseball field in between there. And the Homestead Grays, that's an old baseball team that originated back years ago. A lot of guys came played Homestead Grays, went on to the National Baseball. But that's where they played ball at right there.
Okay. All right. So you go to school at Carter Woodson the whole way from 1st to 11th?
I went to first 11.
1st to 11th.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite teacher?
Yes, Miss Sada Wilson.
Okay.
Sada Wilson was favorite one thing. We had Miss Powell Johnson. Matter of fact, all of my teachers was favorite. For the simple fact, teachers at the time in the black community, and I had to keep saying the black community.
Sure.
They had to live in the community that they teached in, because they were the role models for the students and the parents and all. They dressed a certain way. They when you saw them, they looked intelligent, and everything about them was decent. And all of them stayed. You see that little triangle on the corner up here, right by my house where you just came in?
Right.
It was a 2-story house there.
Okay.
Had 6 beds, 8 bedrooms in it. And that's where the teachers stayed at in Hopewell.
Yeah. Who owned the house?
A gentleman named Ed Davis.
Okay.
Ed Davis. He had a store across the street and he owned that house. Then the other teacher that taught was Miss Powell Johnson. She lived across where the parking lot that right behind People's Department Store in there. That's where she lived at. So all the teachers that worked at Carter Woodson School, all 11 of them, lived between here and that house.
Okay. And who was the principal of the school? Or
Harry James.
okay.
Harry Elman James.
All right. Of the Harry James that we.
When everybody
Think
talked
of.
about his name was Harry Elman.
Okay.
Harry Elman James lived in Petersburg, and he caught the streetcar down in the early years when the streetcar went out in 41. Then he caught the bus down. He started in 1927, and from that point on, he came down on the bus. Then when they made everybody move to Hopewell, Harry James lived across the street right up directly in front of that house where you just turned in.
Mm.
That's where he lived until he died.
Do you remember when he died?
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. I used to have to get his coal and water and wood in every day for him.
Did you? Yeah.
So I knew when he died.
Thinking about your childhood, who were some of your best friends, or who did you pal around with?
Mama didn't let us bother. We was almost insulated right in here. I had me and my sister and I had two brothers.
Okay.
So we stayed right in there. This section here is called Dreamland.
I had written down Dreamland Park.
Dreamland Park of Dreamland.
Okay.
Dreamland was here, then you had Dreamland, then you had, the next black section was Southview Village. Then the next black section was Daiseville. Then you had a section in called DuPont City. That was your black section.
All right. So Dreamland is roughly, what would the boundaries be?
Dreamland was, and this is amazing about it, Dreamland, the people that lived in Dreamland, most of them was either immature people that weren't their own thing. Everybody, most in Dreamland owned their own home.
Okay.
The first black brick house we ever had in Hopewell was built in Dreamland, was right there. But still standing right next door.
Okay.
With a black home.
Okay. Where does it get the name Dreamland?
It's amazing. I never found it. I've looked
Okay.
everywhere and can't find it. I have no idea where it came from.
All right. So Dreamland, South B Village, and South B Village. When I think
Then
of
you had
that.
City Point. City Point had some.
Okay.
City Point had that. You had the Wheats in City Point. The Wheats and the Macklin lived in City Point.
All right. And then that would also include, if I'm heading down Winston Churchill, the VFW, South B Village, consider that as well, or no?
That was not Dreamland.
No.
That was South B Village.
All right. Okay.
That was 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Street.
Going back to Howland Park, at that time, Howland Park is a white
It
neighborhood?
was all white neighborhood.
Okay.
Highland Park was was kind of up to class.
Mm-hmm.
Highland Park was next to Crescent Hill.
Are you interacting with anybody from Howland Park at that time? Or?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
matter of fact, we knew everybody.
Yeah.
The Bakers, the Carters, all in there up there. We knew 'em.
You named another neighborhood I don't remember. Newport.
DuPont City.
All right, where was that?
DuPont City. You know where Franklin got his junkyard at?
No.
Hopewell Line and Steel. Yes, you do.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
That's Franklin.
I'm with you now.
That's Franklin.
Okay,
That was DuPont City.
okay.
DuPont City, right, was that, and you had a few houses on, which was 7th Street long in there,
All right.
and that was the end of it. That was called DuPont City.
So Thomas Rolfe Court would be Newport City?
DuPont City.
All right. Thomas Rolfe Court is built in, do you remember when it was built, or was that?
Thomas Falls Court was, matter of fact, it was built, I think, in the late 40s, early 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And that was built, Daiseville was the black section of public housing, and Thomas Falls Court was the white section of public housing.
Right, okay. So you remember the houses that were there prior to Thomas Rolfe?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember they had the 2 or 3 families in there over there.
All right. So coming back the other way and heading down to Arlington Road, I wonder.
Arlington Road was not a part of Hopewell.
All right. So Arlington Road gets annexed in
50, 51.
50 or 51, but I imagine it was still a black community.
Oh, it was a black community. That was
Yeah.
the hub of Hopewell.
All right.
They had more things on. I had more stores and things on Arlington Road than anything else.
I wonder if you could take a minute or two to just kind of recreate for us
What was on Arlington Road?
was on Arlington Road in its heyday.
Right at the corner of Arlington Road and Winston Churchill Drive, you had Jesse Jackson had a pool hall there.
Okay.
If you're going from here to Peterborough on the left hand side, he had a dance hall up on the hill in the woods behind it. On the right hand side, we had Griffin had was an old streetcar, had a shoe shop there with fixed shoes.
On Winston Churchill or Arlington?
Right on Winston Churchill.
Okay.
Then you left from there, you went on up the street. On up the street, there you had Mr. Brown had a cleaning pressing shop
Okay.
on the right hand side. Then you had a little small funeral home there. 2 or 3 people on this. I lost the name of it, but it was a funeral home was there.
Okay.
Then you had a Miss Cook had a little confectionery store right on the corner right there, a corner of Alton Road and Kepex. And across in front of her was Mr. Gardner, had a little breakfast, little eatery. Go on down the road a little further, right on the right hand side, you had Cliff Coles had a barber shop. And across in front of them was his cousin, Ms. Briggs, She had a little eatery and a little rumming house. Next door to that, Rock built the Arlington Theater, which is right next to Cliff Cove.
All right.
Then they had a little restaurant there called a little restaurant right next door to it. Then you had a service station right there on the corner of Boston Street and Arlington Road. Matter of fact, if you go there and look right now, we used to have the old mailboxes that was set on a cement pole. The cement pole is still sitting right on that corner of Arlington Road and Boston Street right now. Nobody never moved the pole.
Really interesting.
And where next door to that, you had Francis Dursky had a grocery store.
Okay.
Across the street in front of Francis Dursky, had a little guy had a little shoe shine parlor. I used to get my shoes shined every Sunday morning. I missed one place back down where the parking lot across from where the theater was. It was a little restaurant there, it was a little bootleg joint, and it turned into a laundromat. Then you went up the street further on up Arlington Road, and there Philip had a pool hall. Also, we had a pool hall in Southby Village. You had one in Daisy-ville and one in Alton Heights. And next door to Philip Pool Hall, you had a barber shop, Colin Barber Shop. Across the street in front of that was Ms. Dursky Grocery Store. Across the street in front of Dursky Grocery Store was Ms. Hawkins, had a rumming house and a restaurant. Next door to that was Friendship Baptist Church. And you went on up on the corner, you had a service station up there run by old Mr. God, I lost his name right now. Come back to it. On the corner, right on the corner of Arlington Road and right in that fault right there.
Mm-hmm.
Then you went on up on the corner of High Street, and there you had grocery stores and things right in that point. So it really was the whole of the black neighborhood through there.
Okay. So if
you went down Boston Street into Newtown, you had Parker's had a grocery store down there.
all right, if I'm on Arlington and I turn on Boston, am I going left?
You want to turn left on Boston right now.
Okay.
And go down into Newtown. Newtown down in there was a grocery store. Baskerville had a store, and Mr. Parker had a store. Bernard Parker had a grocery store. Not a grocery store, confectionery store they call it.
Are either of the buildings still there?
Neither one of them is still there now.
Okay.
Matter of fact, the only building that's really standing is the old theater. The barber shop, the Cliff Cove had is still standing. The Francis Dursky store is still standing. The old church, the Hawkins had if I missed one place, A.J. Allen had a building right on the corner there of right before you get to Dursky. Had a rumming house, and everybody had rumming houses. Rumming house in a confectionery stand.
Mm-hmm.
Had a eatery.
Mm-hmm. Friendship Baptist was always there?
Friendship Baptist it started out down the street. It was down there by Mr. Gardner had his grocery store. Right there. If you came out from across where Mrs. Cook lived at, it was a little piece of land right there. Friendship had that first, then they sold that and went up there and bought that piece of land.
Okay. You mentioned grocery stores up on High Street. Is High Street commercial? Is it residential? Some of both?
On the corner of High Street, it was the old family. God, I'd look it up to deed and tell you what it is. The old family had, they owned everything. That's where your grandfather on the side had the butcher name thing. But there's a family that owned everything right in that whole block where the Elks home at right now. It's a family that owned everything in there.
Mm-hmm.
They had the houses, they had a store, they had everything in there.
More than likely, if you're going for groceries, is that where you're going, or are you going
Yeah,
somewhere?
you went to Dursky's. Dursky's had a book.
All right.
Both of them. His son Francis had a book, and then mom and dad had a book.
Okay.
And they delivered your grocery.
Okay. All right.
When the black people.
All right. So, for those who are watching at home, Mr. Edmonds just pulled out several photos. That it'd be great if he could explain them. The first one is entitled Color Division of the John Randolph Hospital Building Fund. Okay. I'm gonna hold it for the camera. Can you do that? We'll try to get it on camera. Could you take a minute and just share some about these photos? How about this one?
That one there, that was when they built John Randolph Hospital,
Okay.
the black played a role into it. And this, everybody you see on this picture here said that we would contribute or donate X amount of dollars. And if you didn't do it at that point, and you worked somewhere, they would garnish you your pay and got their money. So Black Hope built John Randolph Hospital.
You were forced to contribute.
You were
even
forced to contribute. Matter of fact, you ever heard of Dr. Robbins?
Dr. Robbins, I don't believe I have.
See right there, that's me standing beside him.
Okay. And what year would this have been?
It should be on that picture somewhere. It should be whatever year that you built John Randolph. But that's why I said let's go back to Dreamland, because we got to talk about Dr. Robbins.
All right. Well, let's go back to Dreamland. And where do you want to?
Dreamland was the first. When I first started school at 6 years old, you had to be vaccinated. And Dr. Robbins was the oldest black doctor we had in Hopewell. We only had one black doctor in Hopewell at that time.
Mm-hmm.
He was Dr. Robbins. He had an office right in that building right behind you. The building's still standing right now where you parked at.
Mm-hmm.
That was his office.
Okay.
Downstairs was just a little 3-room building. And he had a building, he had an office in Clearmount, Virginia. He went down there only on Wednesday, and the rest of the week he was here. But he was the first black doctor we had in Hopewell.
How long did he stay?
Dr. Robbins stayed here till Dr. Durante bought him out on the corner up here.
Okay.
Then when Dr. Robbins moved from this building here, when Ed Davis had the fire and burned his building down, the one you just mentioned just now, Ed Davis built another brand new building up there. Downstairs he had four units. He had a beer garden in one, George Covenant had the beer garden in one, Ms. Boyd had a beauty shop in the other one, and Dr. Robin had his office in the other one. And upstairs was a dance hall over top of it.
Okay.
In that building right on the corner up there, where you turn to go into Cavalier Square.
And you mentioned, or I mentioned in looking at Ed Davis's building burnt. Is that the building that burned down, or is that the one he rebuilt?
That's the building burnt down and he rebuilt it. It must have been in the 30s.
Okay.
Late 30s and early. Ed Davis he ran the store, had a store there, and he had the rooming house across the street for the teachers.
White man, black man?
Black.
Okay.
Davis had black man. Never seen him dressed up, always wore an overhaul jacket and a pair of overalls.
Do you remember, how long did he live?
Ed Davis lived until I left here in 61 when I came back, he was dead. No, I went to service. In 51, I came back, he was dead, so he died in the 50s.
Okay. Did he have family or not?
He had 2 daughters.
Okay.
2 daughters and a wife. The 2 daughters came back and stayed a while. Matter of fact, one of them moved into the high rise down at the house resort.
Okay. And you mentioned something about when we were resetting the camera, his whiskey business.
Ed Davis had a still.
Okay.
And he had a building right next to it and had a still in it. And made some of the best moonshine you ever had. The ABC man came and busted them out and poured the whiskey down into the curb and the gutter, and people came from everywhere to drink the whiskey out of the gutter. Just that tasty.
Unbelievable.
Hopewell had 2 whiskey stills.
All right. I got to ask where the other one was.
But if I tell you, you wouldn't believe it. You know where the jail at?
Where?
Old jail at?
Yeah.
Up the street there, Dawson had a funeral home. Right there where Ray Broadhill at now. Ray Broadhill was on that side. And I think the auto part place for the AAP or something used to be right there. Used to be Dawson Funeral Home. Before you got there was a big 2-story building. It was a laundry building. And they had one of the biggest liquor stores you ever seen in your life, 2 blocks from the jail. Hopewell City Jail, they busted that up.
Unbelievable. You handed me some other photos. The first one is entitled Hopewell Colored School, November 1930. Is that Carter Woodson number 1?
That's Carter Woodson number 1.
All right, so this is in the vicinity of...
Right down behind the fire station.
Okay. Did you start your education there?
That's where I started my education.
All right. And you finished it at...
I finished it at the one in Daisylville
okay, on Terminal Street.
on Terminal Street.
Okay. You also handed me a picture of a baseball team.
Baseball team, that was Hopewell All-Stars.
Maybe share a little bit about...
Matter of fact, I'm going to show you a picture on there. You couldn't tell me who it is. Let me see the picture. Tell me who that guy is right there. The guy sitting right there. Give it to him. No idea? That's called Napperchin. Let me tell you who Napperchin was?
yeah.
Curtis Harris.
Was that a common...
Yeah, that was his name then, Napperchin.
I did not know that. Okay.
I'm gonna show you another picture, some more history. You can, a matter of fact, this was
You put it on the camera?
Get it.
After all, we'll do it.
Okay.
the first graduating class. I think you need to print that one. The first graduating class of Woodson. That's Harry James there.
I see. 1932 graduates, Carter G. Woodson School.
You ever heard talk of Miss Quarles, the principal of Alderton School, first woman black principal?
I've not, no.
She's on that picture.
Okay. Okay.
Supposed to be someone who first became the first Grand Master of Masonic in Virginia is on that picture.
Okay. You also handed me a photo of, it's a building at 2B's.
2B's. 2B, that was 2B's Ledger Hall. That was on the corner right, you know where the recreation department is now?
Right?
Used to be an old big building back behind there. And they tore it down the last 2 or 3 years.
Oh. I do know what you're talking about. Okay.
That's when I was a kid, 2B's, this is the good part about it. Every Christmas, if your daddy or mama worked at 2B's, then you bought your child and got your Christmas basket. And every year they had bananas, they had oranges and apples in it and candy in it. And that's where 2B's had all the dancing things in Hopewell were held at 2B's. Right?
Okay. Baseball field is close by to that?
But baseball field across the railroad track right across from it.
Right. I've heard others talk about the baseball field. I've heard that they hosted boxing matches there.
Everything.
Okay, I heard they had fireworks on the 4th of July. Okay.
If you went right across the railroad track to it, right down there with that big pile of dirt that you see where you can't see the plate, that's for the baseball field.
Okay. All right.
Right there where you turn the corner where you can't go up on the bridge, out Neil Bridge go across. The baseball field was right where that road turned that curve in there.
Okay. Let's go back and talk about your childhood. You mentioned before we started your father, I think, worked at Hercules.
No, father worked at 2B.
Your father worked at Hercules, I'm sorry. You're born during the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
What was life like?
Well, we didn't have a bed. My mother and them came out of Brunswick County. And it's amazing. She bought her cow with her hogs, and her chickens. You didn't make no money. You made 25 cents. When my father came in and worked at 2B's until he hurt his hand. When they were dismounting 2B's sold that plant. And they dismounted and he hurt his hand and went 3 fingers. And so they left and that was the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Miles, not Miles, God, I think of her name, I can get the right name. She lived with a nurse there for years. And she lived down there right where John Randolph got his hospital at, near the nursing home at. She lived right there on 2nd Street. Her saw him one day and said, Vanderbilt, what is you doing nowadays? She said, I haven't seen you in years. He said, well, I hurt my hand and he went to work for the WPA after that. So we went on WPA. You ever heard of the WPA?
Mm-hmm.
I was the workforce in Hopewell. So he went to work on the WPA. And worked on the WPA until he met her one day on the street, and she said, well, why are you not working in the plant? He said, nobody never give me a job. She said, you come there tomorrow morning, I'll see that you get a job. And that's when she hired him back at 70s.
Okay.
But you didn't make, but I'm gonna get you one of his pay stubs from 70s. I'll show you his pay stub, how he made a lot of money if he took care of that fortune.
Mm.
Rich money.
Um,
17, it made $20 a week.
$20 a week.
$40 a week.
And his 4 children.
Fortune.
Okay.
No way.
So we talked a little bit earlier about how your career is really in construction.
How I got into construction, my father got laid off at the plant. He became a latherer. A latherer is a little strip you put on for every house. At that time, we didn't have sheetrock. You had to plaster them. So he became a latherer.
Okay.
And he did that for a living. And the first job I hope him do was over at Virginia Meat Market upstairs when they lathered that and they plastered that. Matter of fact, a gentleman named Charlie Hunt plastered it.
Okay.
And I hope him plastered. So from that day I went to work. I started doing that when I was about 9 or 10. And so then my sister started going to a guy named James Jones, and he was a plasterer. And Charlie Hunt, well, my mother, let me go back up a minute. My mother had a little rooming house here also. Yes, how did we survive from living in that time?
Right.
We had a 2-bedroom rooming house that the 4 people slept in. Hopewell was a hell of a town at one time. You ever heard the story about how Hopewell had 1 bedroom that slept 3 people, 1 bed slept 3 people? You ever heard the story?
No.
Well, the rooming house is still downtown on 3rd Street, right there by the Church of Christ.
Okay.
You had a shift that went to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. You had a shift that came off at 8 o'clock in the morning. You had a shift that went on at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You had a shift that went on at 12. And the 3 different people used that bed.
The boarding house is the one that doesn't look like it fits the neighborhood. It's
That's
behind the gas station.
That's right.
Okay.
That's where it's at right now.
Mm-hmm.
They had 1 bedroom, slept 3 people. It's a hell of a story, but that was Hopewell.
And so your mother had a
So we had a
room
rooming
here.
house. We had a rooming house. We would have 2 rooms and slept 4 people in 4 rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And she fed them. And it wasn't what they gave us, what, $2 a week.
Mm-hmm.
That was we had $8 there. And he made 10, so we had $20. We had a lot of money. We had more money than most people. Then, you know how I made my living as a kid? My mother had a cow. And my job, I'll show you the picture of it somewhere if I have one. I had to hit the cow with my job. I had to go and take the cow and move the cow to make sure the cow had grass to eat and water to drink. I did it twice a day. And out of that, we would milk the cow. And you would take the milk and you would sell it. And you would, when they didn't buy it, you take weight and you cream it and make butter. That's where we made buttermilk and made butter. So I sold the milk, and what I made off the milk, we sold it for 5 cents a quart, something like that. But anyhow, I usually had 15 cents a week. My mother would put in that little job there.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 15 cents a week when I was 9 years old.
So where did you keep the cow?
Where we keep the cow?
Yeah.
Right next door.
Right next door.
We kept the horse. You see where you parked that now?
Yeah.
Where that patio is, right where my car parked at? We had a horse stable right there.
Okay.
We had chicken right beside there and had a pig pen across the street over there in Langston Farm.
Are you selling the milk directly to people, or are you selling it to the store?
No, some of the people that didn't know, the people that said, well, I go to Museum and get me a pound of milk or get me a quart of milk. I ain't got but 10 cents, 5 cents.
Mm-hmm.
And we sold it to them. Then the next job I had that was, you heard of Mr. Chris Fish Market? Neither one of you old enough to know where that was. Where Grant, was you old enough where Grant department store was downtown?
Heard of it. But
Grant's right along in there where we're blending it down at downtown, right there downtown now, right there between where they where the girl do the pictures that used to be the pool hall, bro.
Okay.
Right next door. There was a fish lady. Chris had a fish market, and he had a sister named Miss Pete. So I went down, and Miss Pete told me she had a job for me to do, And I said, yes, what is it? So she said, picking chicken. So I think we was 11 years old, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Still trying to make $1.05 here and there. So we picked chicken all day, and Miss Pete gave us 15 cents when we finished picking chicken. So I came home, my mother said, how much? She said, you made money today? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, how much you make? I said, 15 cents. She said, I'll give you 15 cents tomorrow, don't go back. So I didn't ever pick chicken no more.
Okay.
But from then on, after back to the guys with the rooming house again, and the plasters and the lathering and all. So I began to do it. Then I had a sister, my second oldest sister, had went to New York and opened up a beauty shop back during the war, and saved her money. Not that I knew it, for me to go to school to be a doctor. She wanted me to be a doctor. I was a baby. I was proud of the joy. I didn't ever walk on the floor till I was 18 months old. They carried me around in their arms. I didn't do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but she wanted me to go to school to be a doctor. It saved her money for me. I came along and went to start plastering and made $10 the first week. And doctor wasn't getting but 50 cents a patient. And I was making more money than the doctor was at that time. At $10, I had plenty of money. I had as much as Dr. Rob made at that time. Damn, if I'm going to school for 6 years to be a doctor now. So I went on to Virginia State and took a trade. And I attended Virginia State College and did that and took a trade and came on back out to start plastering. So now I was working for my brother-in-law. My sister married the guy she was going with. And he would get down in Disputana every year we'd have. They don't do it what they call it Mayday. Mayday became a communist thing. You wrapped it, go around the maypole and wrap the maypole, and it's. I didn't realize at the time, but later on we realized it was a communist thing. So America stopped doing it. You wrap the maypole, one go in and one go out. You wrap the maypole and do it. So they would go down there with people that graduated from Disputana training school. You got to remember the word I'm using there, training school. And I want to tell you a story about that in a minute.
Okay.
And so they would go down and get to party with their old friends, and he got drunk and stayed down there. He was doing a house for W.H. Mason at the time, and I was helping him. And when you did the first coat, the rough coat on, you got $190 or $200 a house that size at the time. Matter of fact, Francis Sylvia Berger, matter of fact, on 21st Avenue in West Broadway, is a house that he built there. And we were doing that house. And he got $190 for doing the house. Got $90 for the first coat and $110 for the last coat. So he was gone for 3 days, and old man Mason needed the house. I wasn't but 18. So he came to come on by here, pull up the yard and said, Ray, I said, when you come, if he caught you and fired you, your fault you got fired. He never got out of that truck until he cleared his throat. And if you didn't hear his voice then, and you sat there asleep, he gonna fire you. So he came up and he came around the yard and asked my mama where was I at. And she said, he's here, you want to see him? She said, yeah. And that was all. He came down Hughes Street. He said, Ray, said, can you finish that house for me? That James started, and I need that house bad. The girl had bought it, and matter of fact, well, I get her name straight for you. I was one of the girl sisters. And so I said, yes, I can finish. She said, go ahead and finish and I'll give you the rest of the money on it. So in 2.5 days, I had made $100. You talking about 19?
Give us some context. If you took that amount of money and put it into today's.
Or you talking about $500 or $600.
Okay. All right.
All right. Roughly. So anyhow, at that time, I had a house. He looked at me and said, Ray said, you did that house now. I'm not but 18. He said, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm building 6 houses in Chesterfield, right there where Enon Road is.
Right.
And if you turn left on Enon Road, you go back, and there's a black section back there called Screamerville. Right on Enon Road, 6 houses. It's about 8 of them there. He gave me all 6 houses at that time at $200 a house. So how much money I have? I had a lot of money at 18 years old. Then he turned around and told me, he said, Ray, I'm gonna give you a key to my office if you need to go up there and sit down. Oh, this black boy in town got a job. I didn't have a truck. I was holding my tools on a bicycle. He said, go down to Broad Hill and tell him I said, I'll give you a truck. Get your used truck. I'll stand for it. He got me a used truck. He gave me a key to his office. And his wife told me, said, Ray, said, you part of our family. Said, once a year, you got to come and eat dinner with us. So I had to go up there. They lived up there where Heritage had where the vote divided in Hopewell, right there where the visitor center at.
Right.
Where they built that new storage center right across the street.
Okay.
That was W.H. Mason property right along there. I had to go up there once a year and eat dinner with the family. So I was part of the family.
So you did well in business. But
I did
what do you attribute it to? Is it work ethic? Is it?
My mama I was a mama boy. Let's go back to the mama part.
All right.
So I went into service. They drafted me, I went into service. And I went overseas and came back, and I did well in the service. I wanted to be an engineer. And they told me, said, well, we're going to send you to Okinawa, but we'll put you in the engineer. So you can go back and you go back into your business. And they took me and they put me in the MP Corps. Completely reverse from what I wanted to do. But I didn't realize at the time that I integrated the 40th MP Battalion.
Okay.
Completely integrated the whole system.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
That's a big hit. Then I became a good friend of the colonel. I played football then and then riding the school bus. And when I was coming back one day riding the school bus on the corner, then the traffic was like that crazy. Them groups had driving ox carts and wagons and they wasn't doing nothing. So the colonel was out there trying to direct traffic. And I asked the guy on the school bus, I said, stop the bus a minute. So I walked over and I said, PFC Edmonds, sir, can I assist you? He said, I'm not going to cuss like he did, but he said, yes, you can. So get this damn traffic moving. I said, sir, but I'm on that school bus. He said, you reach out the traffic, I'll take care of the school bus. So sure enough, he did. And I got the traffic going, he carried me back to the barracks. And from that day forward, I became a friend of the colonel.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do nothing. Matter of fact, I didn't do nothing then but stayed on the headquarters post and all I did was salute. All I did was handle all of the dignitaries. And I'll show you a picture. I'll follow a picture when I was in the service. And you ever heard either one of you Catholics?
No.
You ever heard of, well, you know, for the Pope to be elected Pope, the cardinals have to do it. And Cardinal Francis Spellman was the Cardinal of New York City. He would come through once a year and go into Korea and see the troops and come back out and come back through Okinawa. And I was assigned his detail. And I'll show you a picture of me and the Cardinal standing together. So I had the Cardinal, I had the Wayne when the guy of the whole Eastern Division came through. I had his Ridgeway came through. So I have in my 201 file, I have three big beautiful letters in my 201 from the file. I wasn't able to draft team.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll get you another picture of me. I'll get you a picture show you where the colonel, I turned around and devised, I was MP, so I turned around and the island was, MP route was crazy as hell. And I didn't like them, so I turned around and devised the whole route of the island, and the colonel made me a sergeant after that. I had my day.
How long were you in?
2 years. My 2 years was up. I got it, but I didn't want to get out because the colonel told me, say, you go home, Ray, go to Fort Gordon, Georgia, and take the MP degree, get a degree, and come to Germany. I'll give you my address in Germany, and I'll make you what you want to do. So I come home and told my mother, I said, Mama, I said, old man Mason came by. No sooner heard I was out the next day. And I told my mama, I said, Mama, I think I'm going to re-enlist again. She said, you ain't going to go back to the Army. I can tell you that now. Old man Mason came by the next day and he said, Ray, I heard you was home. Matter of fact, while I was in the army, old man Mason was sending me $5 a month.
Mm.
He sent me every month. I had $5 with the envelope of W.H. Mason. So he said, Ray, he said, I'm glad to see you home. I said, yes, sir. He said, I got a house that you can do next week, Monday, where you can start it tomorrow morning for me if you want to. I said, well, Mr. Mason, I'm going to New York for a couple of days and we'll stay with my sister down. And then when I come back, I'll do it. That'll be all right. He said, yeah, that'll be all right. So my mother came around the corner. I said, Mr. Mason, how you doing? I said, Miss Evans, I'm doing fine. How you doing? She said, I heard Ray was home. I came by, I had a job for him to do, but he said he's going to New York for the next couple of days. And I said, when did you want the house done, Mr. Mason? He said, tomorrow. He said, he'll be there in the morning, Mr. Mason. So I ain't never got to New York.
And you listen to your mom.
I didn't ever go back in the army either.
Right. So eventually you go into business for yourself, and where was your shop? Or where?
Well, in the office?
Yeah.
Office was out the house, between his office and my house. I stayed everything out in the house,
Okay.
in their business. And I turned around and I got married in 19. When I got out of service in 1954, I got married. Then my wife became my secretary. She had been the secretary. She had been a secretary for one this battalion, the whole Puckwood. So she had the experience and knowledge. So then we set up an office. But then I made her the president, and I was just the manager. So the catch to making her the president, though, that you could get, if you had a woman to own business at the time, then you could fellow work.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a minority owned business.
All right. So you mentioned plaster work going out and becoming a general contractor.
Mm-hmm.
So did you build primarily residential or some of everything?
No, I really didn't necessarily. I did some work for the housing authority, did those things. But I used it then, then I turned around and didn't get a Section 88, but I turned around and did government work.
Okay.
I worked from Newport, from Fort Lee to Newport News, from Newport News to Florida, from Florida to Champaign, Illinois. That's the plaster at that time.
Okay.
And we did all government wearing houses. We hooked up with a company at that time. It was amazing. The company was from Farmville, Virginia.
Hmm.
At the time when they closed the school down.
Okay.
And for them to have a fellow contract, to do contract, they had to have a black employee. And I fitted the key to be the black employee. So we went from Fort Lee, Newport News, all the way into Fort Eustis, all the way back up to Florida, to Champaign, Illinois. Stayed gone 3 years.
Okay. So this was what? What years?
We talk about when I came back, they told me that Winston Churchill was gone, 61,
Okay.
65.
Okay. From there, I'm kind of skipping around, so let me
I
know.
know it. I've kept carrying around.
Let me know, because I'm going, in my mind, I'm going from the 60s to your...
Back to then, I'm giving you pictures of things that went back to then, and I'm telling you back if I would take your time.
But you handed me a newspaper clipping that
Oh.
talks about, entitled Pioneering Local Black Elected Officials, New President, a Man of Vision. This is the Hopewell News, 1993. But in, I think, 1982, you run for office,
Uh-huh.
right? And you become the first elected African-American member of Hopewell City Council,
Mhm.
winning an at-large period, but you won an at-large seat, which is not around anymore. But maybe let's talk about that.
That was amazing. I got into Fu and Holloway in that group.
Right.
Fu and Holloway and that bunch of people. Anyhow, they insisted I ran. They wanted me to run. So I decided to go ahead and run. And we ran at large. And I had no problem whatsoever. I was accepted. I was the last person to be elected at large.
Mm-hmm. So, because I was controversial, I know that
Very controversial.
the at-large, I think we had moved from 5 at-large to 2 at-large, and
Mhm. We had five at large, and 2, it was 5, it was 7, but you only had 5 that could be elected at large.
Right. And there was a lawsuit that was going through the system at the same time to move to a ward system, and we know that the ward system won out. So you
What
were
the large ward system won.
you were the last at large
I was
member.
the last at large.
And what was that experience like?
It was a very good experience, rewarding experience. I've done a lot of things. As a matter of fact, one of my major things was at the time, the school, to get money to build a school
Mm-hmm.
that I accomplished on council, I changed it to no more, you had to have a referendum. Just go ahead and vote it. That's what made the school what it is today.
Doing away, just to clarify, did away with the referendum and council could vote? Or I might have missed that. Could you say it again?
Matter of fact, it's in one of these articles. You'll read it to make sure it's right. I think it's in that. Got to be in that article.
Over.
I'll find it for you, make sure you get
That's
it
okay.
correctly.
And so your first term was in 1982. How many times did you run, and how many?
One term.
One term.
My sister they actually didn't want me to do that.
I did not realize that. So you were one term, and that was it?
One term, I ran the next time, but really not fighting to win.
Right. Okay.
If I won, fine. If I didn't, I didn't.
Okay.
Family wanted me out of it.
Okay.
Family first.
Anything else you want to add from because you served as vice mayor?
First man, the Hiller trainer. Hiller was a hell of a trainer, Mal.
Okay.
Hiller didn't go nowhere without me.
All right. Tell us about Hilda.
Hiller and I did a lot of things together. Matter of fact, Tom, God, what did he name?
Mr. Blunt.
No, not Tom Black.
Okay.
We're talking about Elmo Paul. I was on the council with Elmo Paul. At the time, Elmo had just sold the barbecue place. You know, at that time, segregation was hard. No black considered his county need.
Right.
But when I got on council, Elmo and I became very close. And the only thing Elmo would tell you then, and Buddy and all of them would tell you, if you told me tomorrow we're gonna tear that Elmo brother down, then 5 years from now we'll tear it down. We'll never change.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't change your vote. And I won Elmo confidence. When Elmo died, you know who you were, before he died, you know what he told his wife? I want Ray to be my pallbearer.
Wow. That's quite an honor. That's quite an honor. So you mentioned Elmo Parr in the barbecue restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And
Back then, that was segregation. The black couldn't go in there. You could go in and pick up something, but you can't go sit in that restaurant and eat.
Mm-hmm.
It's right down there where they didn't change the name of it now. It used to put the car wash up there where you came across.
Like honeybees used to be over there.
Yeah, everything was there.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about.
I do. So you mentioned that. You mentioned Parr. You mentioned my grandfather. Who were some of the other people that you served with or were active?
I said Anza Hyde.
Okay.
I served with Anza.
Mm-hmm.
Anza was on. I had a good time with Anza. With Tina Ledbetter. Anza, Hilda, Tom, Elmo. Very, very fine. They treated me like I was just part of them.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw no different in it. Matter of fact, when we city left somewhere, Hill and I got on an airplane together. Her and Teeny.
Mm-hmm.
When you saw one, you saw all three of us.
So you got along so well with everybody.
Didn't have no problem whatsoever.
Right.
Anything I need to know, but it would tell me, call him if I had a problem.
And how many of them did you know from your childhood or from earlier?
I knew him through W.H. Mason. They knew
Yeah.
me from that point.
Yeah. Okay. So you go off city council. From there, what do you devote your time to?
Well, Alan Flanagan insisted I join the chamber. And from the chamber, I went from the chamber to the Kiwanis Club. That's where I devoted my time for them two things.
Okay.
In the meantime, I was already in the Elks.
I'm glad you brought the Elks up, because going back to Arlington Road, the Elks Lodge is kind of it's a landmark, I think, right there on High Street and Arlington Road.
Well, to be honest with you, if you want to be honest, the Elks is the only black place that blacks have in Hopewell they can sit down. Think about it.
Yeah. It's the I guess you describe it as the center of community or the center of social life. So it's
history.
you put it in your words. What does the Elks Lodge
You
mean
know
to you?
you know how I happened to join the Elks? How
Mhm.
I happened to get the Elks? I told you I traveled for 5 years, and the only place you could find a drink of liquor or anything you wanted was at Elks home. When I went into town, see, when I went into Panama City, Florida, and I couldn't find a place. The first place you go to is either Elks home or funeral home. Go to funeral home. Funeral home was the best place. And ask who in this town rent rooms. Because you couldn't get, wasn't no black, they had a list of black hotels, but you couldn't stay in a black hotel. It was just wasn't impossible. But they had rooming houses all around across the country.
Mhm.
But you go there and go to a funeral home or either the Elks home and find out who got robbing around. And that was the landmark.
Talk about the history of the Elks Lodge here in
All
Hopewell.
right, so
How far back
how
does that
the
go?
Elks Lodge got to Hopewell? I was coming out of Thomasville, Georgia. Me and my wife had been over there all night long, and they had a black motel there, and we had our suitcases going upstairs to get in the motel, and the chinches had their suitcases coming down the steps. You know what a chinch is?
Mm.
Bedbugs.
Mm.
Bedbugs were leaving while we were trying to get in. So I told her we're not going to stay there. So we got in the car, we drove on back up the road, coming on back to Atlanta, back on up to Mobile. And we saw this service station, I pulled in there and stopped. And the first thing, I woke up the next morning, the first thing I looked up overhead, they had a great big sign on the service station, "Niggas read and run." I went on back to sleep. Until we got tired and got up, and then we drove into Macon, Georgia. And I saw Elk home. And matter of fact, I pulled into Macon, Georgia, and asked him, I said, tell me where can I get a pot of whiskey, take a shower, and find something to eat. He said, give me 25 cents, 50 cents actually, for 2 towels. You can take a shower here in the Elks home. He said, give me $2.50, and I'll give you a pot of whiskey. And go down the corner, right on the corner there. The Elks have a little restaurant there, and eat there. When I came back home, that's all I ever did when I would have some fun somewhere. Anywhere you went, you could go to the Elks home. Always had plenty of black Elks home.
Mm-hmm.
When I came back home, the first thing I said I want to do is organize me an Elks home.
And that was the start of it.
That started. I took one fifth of liquor and 5 men and organized Elks home with 25 men.
All right. So what year does it get up and running?
Up and running 1965.
And I guess you purchased the property from.
Well, no,
No.
we used it. We met in the funeral home for a while. And then we went down, Bobby Saunders had a place down on Route 10. Used to call it the country club, that little club he had down there, little log cabin. Right there where you turn back off the road, they had a log cabin. And he rented it to us. All the fireplaces and all the dishes and everything in it, just like it was.
All right. Where on Route 10 was this?
That's right there. You know where Corrigan store is? Corrigan? The boy used to be on, is I'm saying it right? It was one grocery store they had on Route 10 down there. Parker, not Corrigan. Parker.
Okay.
Parker.
All right.
Parker grocery store. If you went down the hill from Parker grocery store, just when you cross that little bridge, right on the left-hand side.
Okay.
Then we stayed down until we filled the place up. We couldn't do no more, so we asked Jake Charlotte, said, you can rent my place. So we came up Route 10 a little bit further, and we turned around and put a big addition on Jake Charlotte place. Put an addition that will hold 200 people. We fixed the bar and everything, and we stayed there and paid for that. Then we bought a piece of land back right past that, 5 acres of land. And we decided we were going to use that, and then we turned around. Tucker owned up here where the Elks home is at now. He had bought it for a funeral home. And he got in debt somewhere, and he couldn't survive it. And the bank told us to raise I was pretty close to the bank with Cap, with Alan Flanagan that bunch. They said, Ray said, that property for sale, won't you buy it? Won't the else buy it? And we bought it all except one house, that whole corner.
Mm-hmm.
I think we paid $2,500 or something for it. That's how we got that piece of property. And we started out with there was a grocery store left there, Corgan, I think it was a grocery store. And we turned around and we took the grocery store and remodeled it. And that with the whole 75 people in there. And we did all kind of things. When Doug Rowler ran for governor, we had his reception there.
Mm-hmm.
In Hopewell.
Really? You know, I remember, I can't remember, I lose track of time, but at one point you did a large addition or renovation to the building, or it grew
Up at Arlington Road.
Right, up at Arlington Road.
Mhm.
When was that?
That was did in 19 and, so we built the building and we did it in 19 and 19 and, 19, let me get it right. I could find a piece of paper.
Okay.
We did it in 85, something like that. No, 19 and 90.
Yeah.
So we built the building in 92.
Okay. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, what about the question about the black VFW and the Shiloh Lodge out at City Point? If you know anything about that.
He's asking what you can share about the black VFW going Winston Churchill and the Shiloh Lodge down in City Point.
What about it? What you want to know about that?
Anything you know about it? Sure.
I joined Shiloh Lodge in City Point. I'm the oldest living member of Shiloh Lodge now. I joined it in 1954. It was Shiloh Lodge used to be an old, started out as a, and I did the history of it. I had the history somewhere for you. But Shiloh Lodge started as nothing but a tourist home. It was, the porters lived on one side, and there was the rest of the lodge boarded back, and yeah, but we should find a piece of paper for you. Keep telling you off the top of my head. Give me a minute if you will.
You're fine.
Stop your camera a second.
Give us a chance to recess this.
You ever heard talk of a black hotel in Hopewell?
No.
Never?
Do we need to record this?
It's going.
Is it good?
See that yellow mark there? Read for that. Read that. You take it.
Yeah.
See what they say above him? See what that yellow says above there?
City Point Inn?
You have a hotel and for tourist home in Hopewell. See on down for the yellow one?
Yeah.
What's that? What that say?
It says Tom Gant, 40 Railroad Avenue.
That's he had a hotel, like a hotel.
All right. I need some context. Railroad Avenue was.
Railroad Avenue. You know where the housing authority got the high rise at now?
I do.
Well, that was Railroad Avenue right beside that.
Okay.
And right behind where the jail at now,
Yeah.
where the hotel, there used to be an old hotel there.
Share with the other businesses on all the business districts for the black community.
That's where the jail was. That was the first black hotel.
She asked if you could share some more about the businesses along Arlington Road.
That was the main.
Arlington Road. What you want to know? I gave you all one that was on there. What you want to know about it?
He talked a little bit about it when you were out of the room, but that's okay.
We gave you every one of on that road.
I think you did.
I remember.
When did
I wish I had remembered.
when did Arlington Road change? When did it shift? And
Arlington Road shifted when we lost after the theater went out. The theater went out, and all the little restaurants and everything went out. Arlington Road shifted in the 60s,
Mm-hmm.
early 60s.
Okay.
Fast food.
That's when everything left there. After the Durskis died, the Durskis actually own Arlington Heights almost. Old man Dursky, mom and daddy, Billy Dursky, mom and daddy.
Right.
All the houses up on anywhere in Arlington Heights was rooming out where they had built a little house, 2-bedroom houses. All of them belongs to them. That's where they made their money.
Mm-hmm.
They built Hopewell for French yard.
We talked about the Elks Lodge. When you think about landmarks for the black community here in Hopewell, what stands out? What's most important to the black community?
Right now, the Elks Home. And talking about that, back to that bathroom, that shower,
Yeah,
you went in the Elks Home, you'll find one.
yeah,
I made sure you put a shower in there.
yeah.
I'll take you in there one day. You never been in?
I've been in, but I have not seen that.
One day you got time, let me know and I'll meet you up and take you in.
Love to do it.
You get to view the whole thing.
I'd love to have the tour.
You
It's a
don't
beautiful
talk about the
building.
church life influence,
Which one there?
churches, what church did you attend and
No,
how that influenced your life?
Which one to know?
the church that you attend or attended and how it influenced you.
The church?
Yeah.
I went to Friendship Baptist Church. I was baptized there when I was 11 years old. In 1941, I was baptized there. Matter of fact, I got the first loan to build a new church. I got the first loan to build the Elks Home, the first loan to build a new church. The person that influenced me used to be the pastor of West End Presbyterian Church. I went down to the bank, and Alan Flanagan wasn't in charge at the time. Was another gentleman, he was in charge, and he went down. I said, "Mister, I'd like to get a loan for the church." He said, "Ray, I know you will, but have you counted the cost?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "Go back and count the cost." So he said, "Look in the Bible and see what words and count the cost and come back."
Okay.
So then I went to the gentleman used to that built the old West End Presbyterian Church. He used to live in the old log cabin house up there on City Front Road.
Bill Hill, Reverend
I
Hill.
went to him. Told him I need help. I need you to convince him to let me get the loan. Go back in there tomorrow and get your loan, he told me.
And that was that.
That was the end of that.
Wow.
It's all about relationships.
It is. It's about it seems to be the common theme through your life is your ability to develop.
Who you know and what you know.
Right.
If you wanted something in this town, if you didn't know the right people, you didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know it, I know it. You all both been here all your life.
Yeah.
If you don't hit the right button, you don't get nothing.
What does Hopewell mean to you?
Hopewell means a lot to me. I never left it. So I always came back. I never been nowhere else. Never been all over the country. I've been almost in, we got, how many states? We got 50? So I've been in 40 of them.
Mm.
Nothing impressed me no more. Matter of fact, my wife told me I was going all over the country looking for things, wanted to see things and see the history of something, know something. She said, "Do you know Virginia?" I said, "Well, not really." She said, "Well, start traveling Virginia. Then come back and talk."
Mm-hmm.
She told me the same thing about the house here. When I had a house, and I remember when me and her moved into it, we waited 4 runs, and I had it. And she told me, she said, "Everybody come to church." I turned around, made it 5, and I would tell her, "If you come to Hopewell, boy, stop by to see me." She said, "They come to see you one day, and you ain't got nowhere for them to sit."
So you made him a
It's
place to sit.
14 rooms in here now.
Yeah. So there's no place like home. That's the lesson.
The house next door was a replica of what he grew up in. If you can get a picture of that, that was the house size compared to what it is.
Okay.
14 rooms, but I'm gonna get back to you. You want the history of the Mason? I'll get back. I'll find it and give you the whole history of it.
Y'all know what his military career?
I haven't.
We did.
I won't forget that.
Yeah. We
Well, there was
talked.
also the, anything about the VFW?
No. The VFW, you weren't affiliated with that at all.
I did. Matter of fact, when it started in Petersburg.
Yeah, it still is affiliated of Petersburg.
It started in Petersburg. Me and Joe Carter and McKinley Jordan and 2 or 3 of us organized it.
Mm.
I never even really been in it, did much with the building, but
I didn't know that.
see if I can show you how I got involved. It made me involved in it, of who I know. Such a, you're right. Kind of weird life, ain't it? Strange life, huh?
You've led an interesting life, it sounds like.
Full life.
Anything else you want to share?
Well, yeah,
What's meant most when you look back at your life?
I'm gonna show you something that was important. That I did do.
Okay.
Holloway appointed me to the Veteran Affairs Committee, the first black that ever served on the Veteran Affairs for the state of Virginia.
Mm.
And I served with 3 presidents, 2 city governors. And out of that, we built, our job was to find a piece of land for cemeteries for veterans in Virginia. And that's what we did for 12 years. We did that and built a big domiciliary facilities up in Salem, Virginia, $18 million building. And this was one of the things. The cemeteries, you know what the cemetery, that's Suffolk and all that. Here's what we built in Salem. Look over to the back, you'll find my name in the back somewhere. We'll keep on going, you see outlines of it.
I see. That's quite an honor.
And locally, you did something with the Hopewell Public School with CTE, right? Vocational education as well.
Oh yeah, he have that one, me and Bob was,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay,
I see
great.
that. Yeah. Anything else you want to share?
I think we're pretty close to where we want to be.
I think we covered
We
a
did pretty good.
ton of ground. I'll tell you that.
I'll walk you down and show you the pictures in the bottom of the rest of the house. Holloway was very influential in my time in life. He did a lot of things for me, made sure I did a lot of things. So we did things together between Holloway and Bully. Had a good life.
Yeah. We appreciate it, and yeah, I think I'm glad we could do this.
Come on, we'll walk down to the office and look at the pictures on the wall. Come on.
Let's go.
Can you take your camera
Mhm.
and follow?